again, why do you think salespeople lose deals?
One of the answers I see here is from Richard. He's saying lack of compelling presentation of their ideas. Do you agree with that, Steve?
Well, from some perspectives, yes, but more importantly, it's the ineffective messaging in terms of the value proposition that you develop. And again, executives are looking for the value that you can deliver to them. Okay, we see a couple of more answers, so I'm going to move ahead. Somebody said inadequate follow-up. Okay, maybe, perhaps. They don't take the time to explore the customer needs fully and match them with their services or products. Okay, that's you're on the way there. Lack of follow-through. Again, you're on your way there. Not connected to the right people. Now that, okay, is one of the most important answers, okay, because what we find is, and here are the ranked answers, there's no C-level executive access. So if you don't have executive access to that C-level executive, you're probably going to lose the deal because that executive is probably the person making the buying decision. No or limited business solutions focus, okay, some of you maybe alluded to that. Ineffective messaging, but really the focus there is the lack of a compelling value proposition. And next you see lack of an internal mentor. And lastly, the inability to mitigate risk. What does that mean? Well, as I said earlier, executives will take a calculated risk, but they want to minimize that risk because they're making a major buying decision that's going to impact their company. And they're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars perhaps on a solution, in some cases millions of dollars on a solution. And they want to make sure that they are mitigating the risk of those decisions. And this was from a study done by the Harvard Business Review. Now, you might ask, why do we even have this chart in the presentation? Well, the main reason is to highlight the need for you to have a social selling plan and get ahead of the process so that you get access to that C-level executive. And so that executive wants to see you. You want an executive calling you or having the ability to interact with you as part of that buying process. So let's move ahead and talk about, how do you create a social selling plan? What things should you consider? And you're seeing here just the first page of a 2-page planning template, actually, that we use in our social selling to the C-suite workshop. But we talk about, how would you define the characteristics of the ideal buyer? And then you've got to identify your purpose. What specifically do you want to accomplish? For example, acquire 10 new clients by the end of the first half of this year, by June 30th, 2016. And then you've got to put together your plan, the specific goals, strategies, and tasks that you're going to commit to take action on the purpose that you identified. What specific activities will you start to do, and by what date will you have them completed? And then you have to monitor your plan. How are you doing against that plan? How are you achieving the results that you expected to achieve with your new social selling plan? So, again, setting that plan in place is one of the keys to implementing an effective social selling strategy. Now, let's talk a little bit about more about the relevance of LinkedIn, because I think that you're going to find that this is so important. And what do you think, here's another question for you, a polling question, what % of C-suite buyers do you think used LinkedIn to support that purchase decision or that purchase process? What percentage of C-suite buyers do you think used LinkedIn? And I'm going to give you a minute or so, maybe a few, maybe less than that.
It's a really good
Lauren,
question.
you
It'll
can
be
tell
interesting
me
to
when
see
we
what
have
everyone votes.
people voted. Again, what
All right.
percentage of C-suite buyers do you think used LinkedIn for that purpose? Okay, can I go to the results? I will. Oh, okay.
Looks
Wow.
like a complete yes.
Okay, 45% of you had the right answer, 63%. 30% of you thought it was 53%, and 15% thought it was 43%, 15% thought it was 33%. The answer is 63%. Now think about that. 63% of C-suite buyers used LinkedIn. And again, this is a survey that's 2 years old. So this is, probably that number has done anything but increase since then. Now let's talk first about some mistakes people use in the social selling process. Because, social selling has been around for a while. It's not a new technique. It may be new to some of us, but it's been around for a while. Here are some of the mistakes. If you don't have the right training, you're not going to utilize social media to its optimal advantage. And if you don't do the planning right, and if you don't have the process in place, you're not going to succeed in accomplishing your objectives. And what you have to remember is that, again, executives are looking for the value that you can deliver to them. So if you're sending a broadcast pitch or a broadcast presentation out there and you're just hoping something sticks, that's not using social media to its best advantage. What you want to do is you want to have a consistency and a focus and a purpose to implementing an effective social media strategy. And again, that begins with building your brand on LinkedIn. And again, I can't tell you how important this is. So your profile that you have on LinkedIn defines you and your brand. So you need to spend a few minutes there. And what I suggest you do with your profile is that you build it from the customer's perspective. What do you think is important to the customer? How are you going to demonstrate your difference? How can you demonstrate the value that you can deliver to them? And how are you going to communicate that value? And use that media, that profile, if you will, to tell your story. And there are many different sections to your LinkedIn profile, as everybody here knows. But right up front is that grabber on your summary. And I can't tell you enough, make sure it's written from the customer's perspective. And then you're going to have a section on there that talks to your experience, so you can put in some of the places that you worked, what your career has been like. You can also there share some of the recommendations that you've got from other people. You're going to have your connections in there. You can put publications, your skills, your endorsements. So make sure that your profile is as complete as it can be, and your objective should be to obtain an all-star level on LinkedIn. And most people don't know this, but there are actually 5 levels of your profile or profile strength on LinkedIn, and they measure these. It starts with beginner, goes to intermediate, advanced, expert, and all-star. I can tell you I have an all-star rating on LinkedIn. And if you want to know how you achieve an all-star level, I simply tell you, just Google those terms, how to obtain all-star rating on LinkedIn. And you'll be surprised at the responses that you'll find when you do that. Now, I've done that just to make sure I was telling you some or giving you some good information, okay? But try that. Just Google the phrase, how to obtain an all-star rating on LinkedIn. And what I'm going to do with you right now is share with you my first paragraph in the summary area on my LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to get to the next page here. And this is a little busy, this chart, but here's exactly what it says on my profile. And I'm just going to read it. Selling to executives is a critical skill for business-to-business salespeople. My major focus is on helping, and you see that. And then I give an example there. I said 5 days after having attended a recent Sell Excel workshop, a salesperson was able to implement the methodology we discussed in the workshop and was able to gain access to a CXO-level executive where their company had been blocked for 7 years. That's the type of results I'm seeking to create. So right there, first paragraph is the real grabber to the executive or to anybody reading my profile. I'm showing them the value that they can get by working with me. So again, the focus here is that it's written from the customer's perspective, and it shares with them the help that I can give them and their salespeople by delivering value. So we talked a little bit about the LinkedIn and building your brand with LinkedIn. And what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to give you a few minutes here, and again, it's your turn, and I'm going to ask you, based on what we've just talked about, what area of your LinkedIn profile will you update this week to bring it up to the next level? Again, what area of your LinkedIn profile will you update this week to bring it up to the next level? And just while you're talking about that, in our workshop, what we do is we actually have the salespeople who attend our session go to their LinkedIn profile and do what I'm just asking you to do right here. Update their profile to bring it up to the next level. And we have coaches in the class who can go around and help the salespeople develop their LinkedIn profile so it helps them build the brand. Okay, so let me hear from you on what areas of your LinkedIn profile do you think you will work on, or what areas will you work on to bring it up to the next level?
I'm thinking definitely for myself, I'll work on that opening paragraph since it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great.
Okay,
a couple of other people are chiming in now.
Yep, accomplishments. Great.
He's going to update his accomplishments.
Tweak the summary.
Well, they're coming quickly.
Add experience details. That's great. Add experience. And by the way, I'm sorry?
Jackie is saying add in experience details along with reviewing and updating her summary.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that. Now, don't forget, okay, that you can put in your summary area on LinkedIn and on other areas, you can add media. You can add slide presentations there. You can add videos there, okay? So don't minimize it, okay? Make sure that you are communicating your value because the executive is going to see your profile. And they're going to say, why do I want to do business with this person? Not only this company, but why do I want to do business with this person? When you're looking at the value you can deliver to a client organization, and this is one of the other things we really focus on, is when you're building a value proposition, there are 3 components of value. The first component of value is your personal value. Your personal experience, your background, what you bring to the client organization that you're working for. Secondly, the value of your company's resources. This is beyond your solution now. And then the third is the value of your solution. So 3 components of value, but the first area of focus there is your personal experience. And this, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, is one area that you can easily communicate some of the value that you have and communicate that to the executives who are looking at your clients. Okay.
Great.
So we got a lot of good answers. I'd like to communicate your value idea, tweak the summary, add in your experience, add your accomplishments. Somebody else said cool opening paragraph. Great. Okay. Thank you. But look at what I described to you and use it as a template to help you bring your profile up to the next level. And look to how you can achieve that all-star level. And again, LinkedIn is very specific about what they're looking for to help you get up to the next level. Okay, here's the next question for you. What % of C-suite buyers prefer to work with sellers referred by someone they know? What % of C-suite buyers prefer to work with sellers referred by someone they know? So respond to that poll, if you will, and we'll share the answers with you.
Okay. I have a feeling this will be very one-sided, but let's see.
Okay, skip to results. Oh, okay, you got it right. Okay, all the way at the top, 87% of you said 72%, which was the correct answer, and 12.5% answered other areas, okay? So again, you got it right. Here it is. 73% said they prefer to work with sellers who have been referred by someone they know. So you want to cultivate referrals. And, you know, when working with client organizations, you know, those executives are looking at the business associates they work with. They're looking at people in their own organization, people outside of their organization, but they're looking for people who have been referred to them. Somebody knows you, that gets you a great entrance, okay? So just remember that as you're working with this, with C-suite executives, and you're building your social media presence. Now, what else can social media be used for? Well, targeted prospecting is another area, and LinkedIn allows you to do a lot of targeted prospecting, something called Inside View, which is another approach to actually approach the social media in a lot of ways. Allows you to identify specific targeted areas like you see here in terms of who are you trying to get to in the client organization, what's the size of the company, what's the company industry, what's their revenue. And when you identify some of those kinds of things, you can then get a targeted list of prospects that you can work with. And these can be then, you know, people that you add to your LinkedIn connections, or people that you can get connected to using LinkedIn. Now, what I'd like to ask you to do, because a lot of you on the call today, on the webinar today, have used social media before to do prospecting. And let me ask you to share with us the ways that you've already used LinkedIn for prospecting, and then we're going to talk about some of the other ways that you might not have thought about. Again, what ways have you used LinkedIn to prospect?
All right, so we have some answers coming in. One of the ways I've used LinkedIn to prospect is to actually see how much turnover has happened within a company. So I know you can go on LinkedIn and look at a company and see who's employed there, and I'll go back and check periodically if it's a company that I'd like to work with to see if the employees are happy. You know, That's one way I've used it.
Okay, but others out there, how have you used LinkedIn for prospecting? Okay, like to learn the background of the people. Okay, that's one way to do it.
That's a good way. Any suggestions
Yeah, I
that
haven't
you would
heard a lot
recommend, maybe
so
ways
far.
that people haven't tried?
Okay, I'm going to post some, and then you can share with us maybe areas that you've used, okay? Direct contact. You can follow the prospect's content, look at what they're saying about their company or about them personally. You can go to LinkedIn groups, okay? You can use LinkedIn to set up webinars. Somebody said Jackie said I've mainly used LinkedIn to connect or network with others. Okay, great. You can use LinkedIn to actually help you connect through Twitter. We're going to talk about Twitter just very briefly in just a minute. You can also look at who's viewed your profile, and depending upon if you have an advanced copy of LinkedIn, you can get additional types of information. So again, you could also build those prospecting lists and do some direct prospecting using the technique I mentioned 2 slides back. When you're in a session, I'm just going to go back real quick, you can identify your targeted customer and actually get back from LinkedIn specific names of people who fit the categories that you identified. Okay? So unique ways to do it. Let's talk real briefly about Twitter. You can also use Twitter for prospecting, another social media technique. And again, in our workshop, we have our salespeople actually build a Twitter account if they don't have one today. But you could start to build a relevant following using Twitter. You can look for buying signals by monitoring your Twitter account, see what's happening, see what the buzz is out there by executives and companies that you're interfacing with. You can get insights on what your prospects are saying when you use Twitter. You can build your own following. And then you can build relationships with some of the key influencers who are following you. Okay, so let's talk about learning about your customers and how we use some of these social media techniques to do this. And when I talk about learning about customers, I talk about 3 levels of learning. And starting at the bottom, it's about your customer's industry, your customer's company, getting more information and knowledge about them in terms of their specific customers, your customer's customers, and also your customer's competitors. And then lastly, information on the customer executive yourself. Himself or herself. And what happens here is there are lots of ways, for example, to use different social media techniques to get some of this information. And why do you have to have this? Well, before you make that critical first call on an executive, you need to be armed with these levels of information because the executive does not expect to educate you. They expect you to have some basic knowledge about their industry, their company, and about what's important to the executive himself or herself. So here are different ways to do it, and you can use different types of websites and social media, but you can use industry news websites to get information about your customer's industry. You can use Inside View in Facebook to get information about your customer's company, and then you can use either LinkedIn or Twitter to get information about the customer executive. And let me just spend a minute on LinkedIn and getting information about the customer executive you're about to call on. Before I make a telephone call to an executive or before I have an initial meeting with an executive, I always check out that executive on LinkedIn. And you will be surprised at the level of executive who has a LinkedIn profile. C-suite executives often have profiles on LinkedIn. And you can go out and look at that executive and see who they're connected to. You can see people you may know because they have people that they're connected to. You can see where they've worked before, their work history, and you perhaps know people who have worked in those companies or are working in those companies now, and you can get information about that executive. And you have to do this level of information gathering before you meet with the executive. And let me tell you an example of something that happened this week. I had a phone call with an executive this week, and before I had that call, I checked out her profile on LinkedIn. And what was amazing to me, and this was a C-suite executive, okay, in the sales area. She was a sales training director. And I found that she had a background with a degree in mechanical engineering. And my background, my initial degree, was in electrical engineering. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I brought that up in the conversation, and she said, well, how did you know that? And I told her what I did. So it's information that you could get to start a conversation with an executive to help you advance the conversation that you're going to have with C-level executives. Okay, now, again, researching your prospect, there are lots of things you can be doing to research your prospect, using your network, using publicly available information, using the prospect's organization. And then what you're going to do is really triangulate this information. Triangulating means looking at all the information you've gathered and putting it together and seeing where the common threads are. And look at using things like Google Alerts, using Inside View, using LinkedIn and Facebook, for example, to get information about that executive. Again, before you make that critical first call, you want to be armed with information about the executive, about their company, and about the industry that they're working in. Perhaps you can provide your executive with tips or information about their industry that they're not even aware of, new regulations that may be taking place or things of that nature. Okay, let's move ahead, and we're going to ask you after I show you the next slide which of the following tips you might use. So be thinking about that as I pull up the next slide here, and talk about, again, some of the tips that we've been talking about for the last few minutes. So again, you want to review that executive's LinkedIn profile, look for common connections, look at groups they belong to. Maybe you belong to the same group. Maybe you know people who know that executive. Follow the company on LinkedIn. Establish Google Alerts. Again, if you haven't done that, that is a real key way to find out information about an executive, about a company, anything specific, a specific industry. You can use Google Alerts for lots of different areas. And again, if you haven't tried that out, just Google Alerts, and it'll connect you with how to set one up. Follow the company in Inside View. If you're not using Inside View, many salespeople are. Many salespeople working for a variety of different companies have subscriptions to paid subscriptions to Inside View, where you can follow targeted executives, set up a watch list to receive trigger alerts, and again, look at this information daily. So there should be some area of your day, every day, that's dedicated to using social media to advance your connections to C-suite executives. So from the audience who's out there, tell me some of the things you've used here and which tips you might use if you haven't used them so far. What are you doing with social media that might be a little bit different or unique, or what things will you do? reviewing the executive's LinkedIn profile, looking at those common connections, just as Richard pointed out. But don't ignore any of these. They're good opportunities for you to move ahead. Let me jump to this slide, which is really the last one. Okay, so here's what I look for you to do in terms of changes that you might implement. Improve your level of social awareness. Look at the right social connections, grow your networks. Improve your social presence. And the key here is to be authentic. You don't want to be just distributing, emails, blast emails. You want to be a thought leader, and you want to show executives out there how you can deliver value